We have some dev insights for the final shape armor tuning, some reworks, some updates. These are really worth talking about, and it mostly has to do with Prismatic. They had to update a lot of exotic armor and armor mods that reference to super or whatnot to make it work with Prismatic or make them better. They say, for example, Hoarfrost Z now just requires a stasis super to be equipped, then the full stasis subclass. And there's some things in here that are kind of questionable. There's some good things, but overall, let's just talk about it. So for the Hunter, they talk about the Triton Vice, and I've covered this thing a couple times. And the whole issue with it is that why would you use it over Syntheseps on Titan? And the question was, why is the Glaive exotic for the Hunter not as good as just using a Syntheseps on a Titan? So with the Triton Vice now, Glaive projectile final blows now always trigger a detonation that matches the Glaive's damage type, even when the Glaive does not match the equipped subclass. So that's good. It's a quality of life change. And the surrounded effect now lingers for 5 seconds after no longer being surrounded. I'm still not sure that that's enough, but we'll see. Good quality of life update for Dragon Shadow. It's been updated to trigger the effects when using Ensnaring Slam, or the new Ascension Arc aspect, opening up more build crafting combinations. It's good. Now, Foe Tracer now grants the bonus damage it inflicts on a target to weapons. The damage type also matches that of the ability used to damage that target, so instead of always matching your equipped subclass. So this is kind of cool. Like, as an example, say you're using a solar weapon. We'll just say Luna's Howl. Say you're using a solar grenade, you get final blows, get the surge for Luna's Howl or Sunshot, whatever solar weapon. But say you're on Hunter and you use the stasis melee, get a final blow, maybe using Winter Bite, the big glaive. It's also going to get that big surge from Foe Tracer. So that's pretty cool. Everyone liked that. I view that as a buff. And then with 6 Coyote, along with Armamentarium for the Titans, it now creates Orbs of Power from final blows after using your class ability, so basically it's including Reaper into it. And I would assume that if you do a lot of Reaper mods, you're going to get a big orb. Renewal Grasps. Depths of the Dust Field. Your Dust Field grenades have a much larger effect radius. Allies inside the Dust Field take reduced damage, and targets inside the area deal reduced damage. Now, this sounds like a rework. It's now updated to grant Frost Armor instead of a bespoke damage reduction effect. On entering your Dustfield grenade volume, you or allies gain a stack of Frost Armor, about every 0.9, about a second. An additional stack of Frost Armor is granted, resetting your timer. So, couple things. I'm unsure if they took away targets dealing reduced damage inside the Dustfield. It sounds like it, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of the Frost Armor in general. Like, it's cool. They took away the overshields, let's remember that. And I did talk about it because I've had a long week. But going into Frost Armor, you're fortified by layers of durable stasis matter, reducing incoming damage. So it's DR. Instead of an overshield, it's DR. It grows stronger as you gain additional stacks. So you can gain a total number of 5 stacks that last for 9 seconds. If you have Whisper of Rymon, it goes to 13 seconds. You get 8 stacks. So 22 and a half at 5 stacks, or what, 36? At 8 stacks? So it's a stacking buff that's super low, 4.5% per stack, so you have to gain them. And there's some instances with new exotic reworks that you get the max stack instantly, but I'm unsure if, like, that's enough, because I immediately think of Woven Mail. Woven Mail was nerfed from 55 to 45, or like 50 to 45. It's 45 now. 45% DR, and the perk trigger is almost laughable. Like, you can be on Certarachne, pop a grapple, you get 45% DR. And of course, Strand Titan, instantly, a lot. And there's a lot of ways picking up Orb of Power, immediately 45%. So you're telling me I have to pick 5 shards, run around, and get 22 and a half, 36 DR? That doesn't make sense to me. And with renewals, the biggest thing was targets dealing reduced damage inside the Dust Field. With Star Eater Scales, they've paid attention to Golden Gun. And just overall, they increased the Orbs of Power required for maximum stacks from 4 to 6. That isn't too bad in the grand scheme in PvE. It's really not. Especially if you're running Reaper, different mods. You're going to get 6 by the time you want to use your super. But they reduced the increased super energy gained per Orb of Power when the Golden Gun is equipped from 2% down to 0.5. So you need 4 to equal what it was. In the grand scheme, you're not really going to feel it for, let's say, if you use the big staff or Blade Barrage, whatever it is. For Titan, we have Ursa, and they updated it to improve to go along with the new Void aspect Unbreakable, in addition to its previous effects. So its previous effects, the Guard, move faster while guarding when Sentinel's shield is active, guarded damage converts to super energy when the super ends. Well, it now provides increased movement speed while guarding with Unbreakable, and it also grants super energy for guarding with Unbreakable. This energy scales based on the amount of incoming damage the shield absorbs. So they say it's an addition to previous effects. So you're going to get even more movement speed and get more super energy while guarding. And this is going to be a big buff because of the way they've dealt with Bubble. And again, I didn't talk about all that. But now I'm unsure if it's going to follow through, but it sounds like they're trying to make Sentinel Guard shooting through a thing. Because they're saying, hey, if you equip this exotic, you're blocking damage. You're going to get even more super energy back for you and your team. That way you can use it more. And you're going to be able to move super fast to walk with your team to different locations. So very interesting what they did here. At least it sounds to me. I'm not sure if it's going to be used, but it is very interesting. And with everything talked about today, it's actually one of the cooler ones, I think. This one's super cool for Eternal Warrior, and it's always been a meme exotic for Fist of Havoc. That's going to be unchanged, but you're no longer required to be on an arc subclass for the arc final blows to get that escalating arc damage bonus. So it's small, but it does add up. So like if you're in PvP with like, we'll take a Horror's Lease with Kill Clip, it should escalate the Kill Clip damage even more. Start getting into 2 taps with it, almost like a Radiant. So that's going to be really interesting. And it says, like the 6 Coyote above, Armamentarium was updated with an additional benefit beyond granting a second grenade. It now creates orbs of power from grenade final blows. So basically they added in firepower. And again, I would assume it's going to give you more with a lot more firepower mods. We'll see. Capri's Horn is really interesting. And again, that's another meme exotic. They've increased the damage by 100%. So double damage of what it does now. So if there's a solar burn or whatever, it might do actually pretty well, because the Solar Blast now scorches each time it hits a target. Remember, that wave comes out, then back. And it also benefits from Ember of Eruption and Ashes. So plus 30 Scorch in PvE, plus 15 in PvP. Maybe Consecration Slam in, throw the Capri's Horn. It might work. Heart of Inmost Light. Basically, the exotic's the same, but they just changed how the HUD interaction is. They condensed it down to just a single icon. That's good. Syntheseps. They reduce the amount of time that Bionic Enhancements lingers after no longer being surrounded from 8 seconds to 5. So that matches Triton Vice. And also has a timer. Severance Enclosure, this is a bit of an odd one. So if you haven't used Severance Enclosure, like even an Onslaught, it's actually pretty good. Back when I made the Felwinter's Helm video with Warlock, it was pretty sweet, because what we would do, I would blind an area with a GL, I would pick a target, I would use a finisher, the debuff would stun the entire area. Then right after me, a Severance Enclosure Titan would go in, find another low health enemy, or use their Bonk Hammer, and just absolutely nuke the area. It was pretty cool. But it says the explosions now require line of sight to damage enemies. They've also reduced the knockback intensity of the explosions, and now launches them more consistently up in the air, vertically. So yeah, maybe it was doing well with Final Shape or with Prismatic or whatever it is, but that's a bit of an odd one. For Warlock, Battle Harmony, they've come back to this. Now grants super energy ranging from 1.5% to 4.5% depending on the enemy that was killed, their tier. And they removed the 2-second cooldown for the perk's activation, so maybe it's just like a better Thresh. And that's one thing that you did do back when Battle Harmony came out. You'd run a Thresh weapon with it. That might call for some fast supers. And then we have Balladors. Activating your Rift grants you and nearby allies the maximum Frost Armor stacks when Frost Pulse is equipped. So now I'm wondering, could there be a Warlock in a Rift giving everybody maximum Frost Armor? Then maybe a Bastion Shield or Woven Mail be applied to everybody, and then you just go do your thing. I don't know. That seems pretty strong, and maybe that's why they didn't necessarily give it 45% like Woven Mail, because they knew people would stack it all together. I don't know. And when you activate the Shatter Attack from Winter's Wrath, the super, nearby allies are granted max stack of Frost Armor, so that's cool. When your super ends, you gain maximum stacks of Frost Armor, so they took away the damage for stasis weapons, it looks like. Took away the old stasis Shard Overshield, and it's now all about Frost Armor. Secant Filaments, the Empowering Rift, will now reset a player's existing Devour buff, duration back up to 11 seconds when they enter it, in addition to its previous behavior, so that's cool. Verity's Brow now requires final blows with a weapon matching your grenade's damage type, instead of the one matching your subclass. So again, that's the theme because of Prismatic. Solar Grenade, Sunshot. We have Sun Bracers. I mean, I'm not sure what they did to deserve. Well, we know what they did. They're really, really strong, but this is pretty harsh. Again, it might have been overperforming in playtests. We wanted to bring down some of his extreme potency and crowd control. You get that melee, you throw that solar grenade, the duration is going to be 2 seconds now instead of 4, so cut in half. And the recharge rate, you only get 4 grenades down from 5. So there's a world with the sub being in the air, getting final blows, then getting another melee. Like, you can still chain it, and 2 seconds does seem like enough time to apply enough Scorch stacks to get ignitions. But yeah, that's a big nerf to them. And also with Cenotaph, when multiple Warlocks are on a single target, there's far more heavy ammo that was healthy for the sandbox, so multiple players using Cenotaph can no longer trigger its effect on a single enemy, but the visual marker is now hidden for the exotic's wearer and only appears to the allies. I don't like that too much. Then again, in theory, they should be glowing red. I don't know. We'll see how all that plays out. It's a bit of an odd one, but the main thing was to get away from multiple people using it and getting a lot of heavy ammo. I think that that is achieved. So I'm not really sure why the visual marker is going to be hidden for the person using it. Powered melee and armor effects. So the term powered melee, we know, means a melee charge. Especially in PvP, the abilities are severely reduced. PvE, not so much. You can get them going. But they say like combination blow, knockout, you can circumvent that cost because those technically are powered melees. I don't know if you guys know that they're coded as powerful melees. With Severance and Closure, if you have knockout up, anything that you punch, you're doing more damage to, and you get some explosions. So they want to make it standard across the sandbox of what they mean. So they're updating Severance and Closure in Assassin's Cowl to only trigger their effects when a player spins a melee charge or uses a finisher to get a final blow. We plan on rolling this type of change out to more content that triggers powered melees in future updates. So that sucks. At least I think it does on paper, especially for Assassin's Cowl. And really, it sounds like the most viable thing is going to be on a Solar Hunter refunding the knife, opposed to using something like Combination Blow. I mean, we'll see how it goes. You can reset your dodge and all those things, but there's definitely a reason why they did that. Then a couple quick things that are good. Exotic Artifice upgrades. Exotic armor can now be upgraded after it's been fully masterworked, granting an Artifice mod slot. So you can get some extra stats. Try to get those triple 100s. It's going to cost you an exotic cipher and 10,000 glimmer. Really good. Ammo finders. Basically, if you had a finder on, when you went down, it reset the progress towards another brick. So they've removed that. So that means if you have heavy or special ammo finder on, even if you go down, the progress is not lost. You're going to get it sooner rather than later. It's a good change. Raid armor mods. They say they didn't feel impactful enough in practice, meaning you're going into a raid, you're using that specific armor piece from that raid to use an armor slot for the raid mod. You're already doing that in the first place, and it takes away from your build because those cost energy. So they've removed all mod energy costs from raid-specific armor mods. That's a good call. And then they go through the conclusion. So to me, there's some questionable reworks, buffs, and nerfs. Some of the things that they chose, why they chose them. There's some things that are still untouched, like Mask of the Quiet One. Really surprised let's be real here. Thinking caps, broad view, in a vacuum. Really surprised Lucky Pants weren't looked at. Whether it be by Warden's Law, Malfeasance, whatever. You know, some of the stronger ones. So that just tells me, you hunters out there definitely have a Lucky Pants build for Final Shape. Yeah, but I'm not too sure about these. Nothing really gets me excited. Nice quality of life changes, updates. But most of all, to me, overall, quite odd. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.